Hello, my name is Tanya from Nana's Crafty Home. Thanks so much for being with me today. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to crochet the cherry blossom crochet stitch. This flower stitch is part of the Spring Rhapsody Blanket Crochet Along that is a free pattern on my website. This stitch is so cute and so pretty, and you don't need to sew. There's no sewing involved at all. In fact, these flowers are crocheted directly into your project. The only stitches you need to know for this stitch are single crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, chains, and slip stitch. So very simple, easy stitches that create this really adorable flower stitch. For today's tutorial, I'm using a cotton yarn in 3 different colors. I'm using Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton and a size H or a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. Let's go ahead and get started. For the cherry blossom stitch, you're going to work your foundation chain in a multiple of 12 plus 13 plus 2. My sample chain, I started out with 51, and I went ahead and worked a row of double crochets and then single crochets as a base for my cherry blossom. You can work your base in any stitches that you would like. You can use single crochets, half double crochets. I'm going to go ahead and work that first row of cherry blossom flower centers by turning, chaining 1, and single crocheting in that same stitch, and then single crocheting in the next 5. And now I'm ready to work my first flower center. Your flower centers are worked in the back and front loops of that next stitch separately. So I'm going to begin working in just the back loop only and placing 3 single crochets in that back loop. If you'd like, you can go ahead and place a stitch marker in that first stitch so you know where that is. And now we're going to just slightly rotate our work so that we can work in this unused front loop here. And I'm going to rotate just to make that a little easier. So now working in that unused front loop, I'm going to place 3 single crochet stitches in that front loop. I will have a total of 6 single crochet stitches worked in that stitch, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch into just the back loop. Now I'm going to slip stitch in the back loop of the next 2, and I'm ready to start working back into my row, and I'm going to place a single crochet in that very next stitch next to that flower center and single crochet in the next 10. So I'm single crocheting in a total of 11 stitches between my flower centers. Once I've worked 11 single crochets, I'm going to repeat those same steps for my next flower center by placing 3 single crochets in the back loop of the next stitch, 3 in the front loop, slip stitch into the back loop of the first stitch made, and slip stitch into the back loop of the next 2. and we're back at our row, and repeat single crochet in the next 11. So let's take a look at that. So basically I just have these little flower centers. They look a little funny right now until I add the petals, but we're basically just crocheting that right into our row, and we continue that on down. And we repeat that sequence, 11 single crochets in between our flower centers, and we're going to repeat that sequence until we get to the last 6 stitches. I've completed my last flower center. I have 6 stitches remaining in my row, and I'm just going to work a single crochet in each stitch to the end. So that's how it's going to look before you start your petals. You just have these funny little circles that you've created for those flower centers, and now we're ready to move on to those flower petals. Cherry blossoms, I have my pink for my flower petals on my hook, and I'm going to attach it to my flower center with a slip stitch into any back loop from that last round of the flower center. Then I'm going to work a half double crochet in that same stitch, in that same loop, and 3 double crochets in that same stitch as well. All worked in that back loop. Now I'm going to go to the next stitch and slip stitch into the back loop. Some of these might be a little tight because I worked a slip stitch into them. And then half double crochet, 3 double crochets in that same back loop. And I'm going to continue repeating those same stitches in each one of those back loops from those 6 stitches. So I'm going to end up with 6 petals when I'm finished. Slip stitch, half double crochet, 3 double crochets. Slip stitch, half double, 3 double. Slip stitch, half double, 3 doubles. Slip stitch, half double, 3 doubles. When you've completed your 6 petals, you're going to slip stitch into that first back loop that you worked your first petal into, and then fasten off. And look how cute that is. Now you're going to have to make your best judgment. I'm using a size 4 weight yarn with variances in yarn thicknesses. You may find that your flower with those same stitches might not want to lie as flat as mine does. So you could make some adjustments in your stitches if you wanted to do just 2 double crochets instead of 3 in the same stitch. Evaluate it and then see how you like the look of it. You could also tack down those petals, leave some longer ends, and then just tack the back of it down to the backing that you've made. So just use your best judgment, but you can see with this yarn, hook size, and those stitches, it lies pretty flat and is not curling up at all or, you know, wanting to bunch up at all. So use your best judgment, but I think with most yarns you'll be able to use the same stitch sequence. So you're going to repeat that for every one of your flower centers, and we will move on to the next row. Now I'm ready to work that row behind those flowers, and I'm going to be changing my color back to color A here, my main color. And turn, and I'm going to chain 3 and then work a double crochet in every stitch. And I'm going to show you what we need to do when we get to these flowers. So remember, this flower center, this flower was worked into a stitch. So to maintain my stitch count, I need to account for that flower stitch. So I'm going to work a double crochet in every stitch, and then you can do a couple of things. You can either put 2 double crochets in the stitch right before or in the stitch right after, or you can pick up a stitch back behind that flower center. And I sometimes will pick up, there's a bar down here from a previous row that I will work a double crochet in. Then my double crochets don't bunch up quite as much in the back behind that flower and makes up that difference. And then I just come over to the other side of that flower and work my next double crochet and work a double crochet in all of the remaining stitches. Again, behind every flower, making sure that I make up that extra stitch. And in that way, I can maintain my stitch count for that row. And then when I turn this around, you can see that makes a nice base for that flower. And then when I go in to weave my ends in, I could go ahead and tack the flower petals down to this backing if I wanted to do so. So that's all there is to it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can always reach out to me at my email of nanascraftyhome@gmail.com. Be sure to sign up for my newsletter so you always get notified whenever I post a new pattern or tutorial. Thanks so much for being with me. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.